Hello, and welcome to another session of the Mastermind Book Club. In this session, Reggie Hilliard and myself, CEO David Diaz, we are summarizing a very important debate about AI agents. What are they? What do they mean to you, to the world? How can we benefit from this information? And are there possibilities to produce income from it? So let's go over this audio. Reggie, I'd like to give you firsthand, what was your first impression in reference to this audio?
Hello, everyone. Reggie Hilliard at the Mastermind Book Club. The conversation to me was very relevant, and one in which we should all keep our eyes open to and our ears open to, because AI is here and AI is growing, and we need to make sure that we're ahead of it, especially those of us who are in situations as it pertains to jobs, which those jobs can be easily made redundant. So, many of us are unaware to the degree that we're not really keeping track of what this AI initiative is. And it could have far, far sweeping positives, as well as what I'll deem some levels even more so potentially of the counter to that, which I don't want to use positive, negative so much, but we'll say positive and negative. So very, very engaging conversation. Touched on a lot of good points. Again, my whole thing with the whole AI, advent of AI, is do your best to make yourself relevant at all times, right? And again, especially those who are in situations, jobs that are easily gotten rid of through the uses of AI. So, many of us, again, being unaware, we're kind of going about our business, thinking we're fine. But if you look around, you see more and more cases of AI sweeping through and, taking over at different levels. So that's one way that I'll start with this. Of course, we'll get into questions and such. But AI is here, and let's just be aware so that we make sure that we make ourselves or keep ourselves in the picture.
Thank you, Reggie Hilliard. I'd like to add on AI. AI is, first of all, for some of you who might not know, artificial intelligence. Now, AI agents are supposed to assist us in acquiring what we want through creating programs. For example, if you wanted to make an order of food, you could use your AI to automatically order food for you, figuring out what's needed, what's not needed. And obviously, the more complex the artificial intelligence agent would be, the more they would be able to track in your home. You could set up a camera to show an AI agent what foods you are low on and automatically replenish them, having it delivered to your door when it gets to a certain level, just as an example. But not only that, it can create many, many more things. That's what Reggie and I will talk about. Now, this AI agents, I forgot to mention where it comes from. It's an excerpt from the Diary of a CEO, which is Stephen Bartlett. And the people who are specialists in this field, Amjad Masad, Brett Weinstein, and Daniel Priestley. So they have a debate in reference to the goods and the warnings about artificial intelligence agents. So I'd like to start out with asking Reggie, have you ever felt threatened by AI agents or AI in general?
No, I don't ever feel threatened by anything, actually. I just feel that I'm always, through the grace of God and within me, that I'm able to access everything I need to stay relevant. And I do a lot of work on myself. So I'm probably beyond confident. People say your confidence is amazing, or even bigger words than that, but that's really just God speaking through me. So if you stay with God, you'll always be relevant.
That's very good.
I'm not
Very
afraid,
great
I'm not afraid of
perspective.
anything.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I blocked you. Barely.
No, I just said if you stay with God and you live through that, through the power of God within, you're gonna always be where you need to be, getting what you need to get, going where you need to go, doing what you need to do, being what you need to be.
Got it. Reggie, did you know that AI threatens at least 50% of the global workforce? those people who are working at McDonald's, Burger King, some of those were making deliveries, transportation, maybe high-tech surgery, laser surgery type of things are already being affected. In other words, 1 out of 2 people will be eventually either unemployed or looking for a different way of income. And what's the government going to do? What's the world government going to do? Some governments are prepared, some are not. And that's where AI brings these concerns. Some people say, wow, I can build my website through an AI agent. Now you don't have to pay someone. Now you pay for this program, which I don't know the cost, which I'll mention the name in a little while, that you can go on and create whatever it is that you need. Now, I have some questions for you, Reg, here. As we go, and as you fill in, I'll also support you and see how I can add. Obviously, AI agents are already replacing millions of jobs, but how do you use them to your advantage? Is there any way that you think you can use to your advantage?
I mean, it's all about some level of making certain things more convenient. So wherever you can add, I mean, now you have to have some levels of expertise or just knowledge of how to use these applications in the way that they've been given to you. But really is about, for me and those of us who understand, to get rid of some of the low-hanging fruit that we have going on in our lives so that like things that we normally put in our time into, we can have these agents take over those things that, we could then free up the bandwidth that we need to go and do the things that would be more meaningful to us, or the things that would maybe give us a lot more return on investment. So that's the way I look at it. If you could just employ these agents in that way, in the sense of the AI features that are going to do these more menial tasks, the things that would otherwise, kind of like take up time that you don't want to have them take up your time, which takes you away from the other things that you could be using your time towards. So that's the way I look at it. But in general, for me, I mean, I'm pretty good about when I need to do something, I'll do it. I don't make excuses about it. But at the same time, I mean, I'll use some of these tools at my disposal and make good use of them, and then kind of put myself other areas where I can be a part of conversations and think tanks and doing things that could get a lot more like I said, a lot more return, that could then empower me and empower others.
Thank you, Reg, and that's the truth. You have to empower yourself, and you have to empower others. There's nothing that pays better than serving others, than being able to be there and assisting them to get to a bigger level, just as Reggie mentioned. Is AI just a tool?
You want to expound on that?
So artificial intelligence, is it just a tool? Meaning, can you use it to create a book, to write a book, to say an audio for you, to create a video? Is it just a tool?
I mean, I've used it in that case to write a book. My book, my first book that I put out, I wrote the whole book. Then I added AI into the mix using ChatGPT to kind of beef it up and create some more structure around it. So in that sense, I mean, I would call it a tool. It's a tool that you can use for creativity, building. I mean, hopefully you don't just totally leverage that thing and just put everything on the tool, because the thing about generative AI, some of these things that some will argue is stealing information, and also is like you not doing the work. And so I don't want to be that person who's just using it in that way where I'm doing very little or almost nothing and using that application tool to do most of what I should be at least attempting on my own. So it is a tool, and it's also I mean, what other word can I use for it? I mean, it's a tool that you can use in many different facets. Whether creating a book, whether helping to set up tasks or do tasks for you, like if you were doing some type of cold calls and things of that nature, like you can have AI do those things. If you're in sales, you can have it write letters or things of that nature, or emails for you. So it's a lot there. I mean, I could go down a list. There are quite a number of things that you can put, the uses of AI to that could then make your life a lot easier. Again, which the real key behind it, what you understand, is to use it to free up your time so that you can use that time better.
And that is something that right now most people don't have is free time. One of the things that I appreciate is free time to be able to enjoy life, to exercise, to run, to be with my family. And most people don't value that as, an immediate. They want to be, on social media. They want to be with indoors. They don't want to be outdoors. And that's happening more and more with the younger crowd, unfortunately. And it's said that by the year 2100, we'll have 0.5% of the world's population on Earth because most families don't want to have kids anymore, or not as many kids as it used to be. And that eventually leads to a decrease in the population. And right now, at the way that we're going, it's going to take another 70 plus years to get there, to half the population. There are people trying to advance this to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And probably AI, will it assist? Will it not? That's a big question. What do you think? Will AI assist in this, in
Well,
decreasing the population?
well, I mean, there was conversation in the podcast about that, and it really comes down to the fact of AI. Again, when we know it's going to make things easier and get rid of people's jobs, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of people, or quite a number of people who have no jobs, and then they don't really have any skills, and then the powers that be who are part of this sort of advancing society, we'll call it advancing like this, they're going to go, well, what good are we going to have for these? What good are these people to us? They don't work. They need to be fed. We talk about this universal basic income that, we got to feed these people at least to keep them going. But what purpose do they serve? So, with AI, as was talked about, the infinity of increased positives that could come from it. But then it was mentioned by one of the panelists that this could be 10 times worse on the other side. Like 10, one, whatever, for whatever infinite good, it could be 10 times worse, 10 times the infinity of not so good things. And when you talk about making people redundant, i.e., you don't belong here because you have no use, who are we to say that, right? That's kind of messed up. And there are people out here, a short group of people who have that agenda, and AI would certainly help to expose that. So pretty sad, but we got to be truthful about what's going on in this world, and cannot keep glossing over the fact of these things being that there are people who have very mischievous, or rather, they're very, we'll just say evil behaving. I'm not going to call them evil people, but their behaviors are pretty foul.
So how do you feel if in a few years from now you have a child and they're ready to go to school, and instead of having a teacher, now you have an artificial intelligent agent teaching them?
I mean, it depends on to the extent of like what we're talking there, because if we're talking all the people who would otherwise be the teachers who are now being put in a situation where they can't teach, given the system that we have where people quote unquote need jobs, and you kind of completely like you know not destroy, but basically cut that number into a significantly smaller number than what is made of those individuals. Now, to some degree, like they were saying, where you apply AI to like tutoring. Tutoring, they said, was one of the best ways, with one, well, it could be tutoring with one-on-one individually, like with some person, or through like a tool. That was one of the best ways to advance a person, like the one-on-one instruction. But in that case, it's not necessarily one-on-one, it's in a classroom. Um, but nonetheless, it depends to what degree we're talking about, because if it was applied in a way where we're not completely, getting rid of teachers altogether, because teachers have value, right? We're still talking about person-to-person connection. And the thing about that is, as you talked about, a lot of us kind of like moving away from that. That's not very human, or and it leads to things like depression, and other things where you don't have that human interaction, as we thought social media would be a way, or they claim to foster better connection, and it hasn't. So if you have everything being robotic and AI and all that stuff, what are we going to see in terms of how people are going to become in terms of like just being connected in any sort of way? So
Got it. So I just want to go into some of the things that you mentioned here. Number one is, did you know that from the late 1900s all the way back into time, horses ruled the world, and they don't do that anymore? What took their place? Well, obviously, cars, and then, planes came in, and then spaceships or spacecrafts that
well, it's still cars mostly when you're
that
talking
will
about.
that will eventually take over what cars have, or droids, as they're known, something to that extent. So we don't know how long it's going to go, but this is the thing. I learned, just as Reggie was saying this, but I've learned from past books that we've listened to, you've got to tell yourself that the future looks bright, that what's coming is unbelievable, is magical, is going to be better because of infinite intelligence or God, or what you may want to call. But the reality is the future is bright. There's no other way to see it. Obviously, at times you're going to fail, you're going to go through a slump, but eventually you're going to come out shining. Now, AI's impact on loneliness, relationships, and connection. You want to take a hit on any one of these?
I
Loneliness,
I kind of touched I
yeah.
kind of touched on it a bit. I mean, as I say, you become more in this like state and place of like living in a very robotic way, or just look at using tools where where you're staying isolated, not getting around people. As I talked about social media, and that obviously employs AI, but all of these tools, which in part was meant to foster greater connection, supposedly has led to more isolation, people not wanting to be around each other. If you're doing everything most everything by yourself, and we know what COVID did for people, just keeping them in isolation, there's still going to be some repercussions to that. And we know there's currently some repercussions, but um, so I would touch on all of those and saying that basically you're seeing where it has its positives in the case of where it's helping to make certain things more convenient, streamline, take away things that would otherwise take up your time and giving you back your bandwidth, could also lead to those things where you're leaving people isolated, caught up in screens, whereas they're not interacting again with people, depression, a number of different things aren't necessarily the best thing. So that's something to be very wary of. And for those who know and are aware, obviously take precautions and do what's necessary. But many of us are kind of duped and not realizing the effects of these things on us. And so we kind of get swept up into the wave of whatever that wave is, leading to all kinds of situation issues, malaise in people's life. And in many cases, they don't know how to come out of it.
Thank you, Reggie Hilliard. Loneliness is a problem already. I mean, I've seen it in kids, in young adults who are afraid to marry, afraid to have kids, afraid to live on their own, afraid to have relationships because they don't want to fail. Well, failure is part of life. Failure is part of the process of being successful, making connections. A lot of kids are also losing the ability to make connections, to have talks with other people, to be around other people, to socialize. And AI is impacting this more and more because more people want to stay home, since they can have access to whatever they want, I guess, through online. It's pretty much whatever they want through online visual effects. And so it could be good, but it could be not good if you're only doing what AI is portraying for you. Now, is this world becoming a surrealistic, a simulation like The Matrix, the movie The Matrix? What do you think, Reg?
I mean, it is already that. It's just exacerbates it. I mean, for those who see through the veil, we know that this is what it is. But some of us only say it in just sort of formulaic or just sort of been told it's the Matrix, and they just say it as like cliche. Oh, it's the Matrix, but it's like to understand it in truth. And for me, I thankfully have done enough work and kind of investigating where I can sense it and feel it. So all this does is exacerbate it, make it much more pronounced for those who like are aware. But for others, they're not quite getting it. So it just still sounds like something that just sounds like a bunch of words. And you can kind of throw it around. It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix. But it is a level of a matrix because a lot of it is not real. It's just somebody's creation that was in their head that they decided they wanted to make this the way of the world so that they could have a level of control and a level of keeping people in a certain place and not activating their greater senses and their greater being. So if you have people more so stuck in these tools, getting locked in, as you say, and becoming almost in a sense less human, as you just spoke to the fact of being afraid to do this and afraid to do that and not wanting to go anywhere because they can get everything inside of their phone or what they deem everything, although it's really not. Yeah, so we then become more collapsed into this unrealistic creation of somebody else that came out of their visions for some, in some cases, diabolical reasons. I mean, you're going to be pretty pronounced about that. So yeah, it's for us to wake up out of that so that we can live our true lives.
So, do you think we live among aliens?
Do I? Yes. I don't believe in things. Actually, I'm pretty aware and know. Just because like many of us don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But some of us do see it, or some of us are aware, we feel it. So, it's not a debate. And even to use the word aliens, that's kind of like we call things that we don't know aliens. Like people, even we call people who aren't from our current, where we live, we call them aliens, right? So that's just like a very kind of catch-all phrase, which is kind of
Yeah.
like ignorant. Illegal aliens are people as well, according to some, right? And
Yes.
who's to say any part of this earth belongs to any one of us? The whole earth is for everyone, so no one's an illegal alien per se. But when you try to take over the world in every fashion, using AI and every other thing, you have people tossing these terms around, and this is necessarily causing a collapse of the world because we start to believe in this separatism. So we got to come out of that.
So here's some questions. One is, there are AI threats, meaning if you can create good, someone can create bad. Someone will want to try and get your wallet, your credit cards, and use them. Someone will want to get your ID and use them. Someone will want to frame you, meaning they'll take your picture and they'll put it into this video and make it look like if it was you. And, these are all questionable things. I've already heard people getting caught. Sorry, not getting caught, seeing videos of themselves asking for money from somebody else. And then people are getting scammed, people are getting robbed, and so on. Is this all true? Well, yes, it is. Stephen Bartlett, who's famous YouTuber, said that his image was stolen, and he heard it and saw the video where he was asking people for money, and people were responding and giving money back. So this is insane. AI scams are out there, deepfakes. One of the big scams that's going to be happening is, watch how, for example, I lose my phone. Someone says I lost my phone, and then they make this call with my audio saying, that through the contacts, Reggie, this is David. I lost my phone. I'm in an emergency situation. Can you send me $500 and I'll give it back to you in a week? And maybe Reggie will say, yes. Or this is the smarter thing is, well, before we go on, I want to ask you one question. Dave, when was the last time that we spoke? If if Dave knows the answer, then you can proceed to know that it's legitimate. Even though he doesn't have his phone, you don't see him, but you're talking to, a voice that sounds like Dave, because it could be anyone. If they don't know a personal question, they won't get you. They won't be able to know the difference. They'll be able to copy your voice, but not know what you've done. And that's a reality. What do you think about all of this, Reggie, that I'm describing here?
I mean, you're just painting a picture of what is truth. So it's not even what I think about it. It's nothing really for me to think about. The fact is that what you're saying is true. And some of these things do happen, and you have to be very um, just aware and be vigilant, because there are people that are using these tools just as much as they're using them for the purposes that are beneficial to society. There are definitely those short number or small number of people that are actually using these tools to do detrimental things, like what you just alluded to or mentioned, and then other things as well. So you just got to be very careful. But sometimes it's even tricky, because even as careful as you think you're being, some of these guys have become so savvy that they can even fool the best of us. So just got to pray on it and walk the walk and do the best you can. And as you go through life, just don't have worry about it. Just pray on it, and and everything ultimately should be fine. As much as you can believe that and know it.
So I'd like to end with a very important question, just as Stephen Barley says, how do we live a good life despite the AI era and everything that's happening?
I mean, my way of life is very inward, believing and knowing that all the answers are within, and trusting in the belief that there is a God within that's going to protect me and move me accordingly through life. And that's how I live my life very intentionally, and that's what's happened. So I get a lot of signs anyway. And once you're clear in your being, you can see those signs, you can know those signs, and you can abide by those signs. And I mean, sometimes what I say, maybe some people will kind of scoff at it because it's like they don't get what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because I know what I've seen and what my life is. And if more of us would actually turn to that, they will hear the statement that our answers are within, but then we don't actually practice that. But if you actually sit and meditate, which meditation is not really a sit and practice kind of thing, meditation is an all-encompassing way of life. But if you actually turn inward, as I've done, even sitting, for example, in the case of doing the sitting version of meditation for 10 days of silence, got profound insight. So when you know that, you trust, as you say, that everything's going to be fine. Like you say, just like know everything's going to be fine regardless of. So that's how I live my life, and it's shown up that way every day. So there's nothing for me to be worried about. And if more of us could do that, we'll see that that is a truthful way and a good way to go about life.
Thank you, Reggie Hilliard. I'd like to add to what Reggie said. It's very important what he just said. And I just want to add to the beautiful things that you're relaying here. One is just enjoy life, enjoy nature. Maybe go out and farm or plant, some flowers or vegetables or fruits. Get out there, walk, swim, get on a boat, whatever pleases you, go do. And, we only live once. We don't know how long. We know when we got here, but we don't know until when we are here. And the best thing that you can do is help others so that you can help yourself more. Just like Reggie said, sometimes you just got to look within because we have all the answers. I've started meditating. I've stopped it. I've started, and I'm starting it again. And I expect this time to be the most persistent one. But one of the things that I'm learning already is, whatever stage in life you are, just be grateful. It could be the best. It could be not exactly where you want to be, but just be grateful. And if you're stuck behind the screen, then you're probably not really knowing what life is all about. You're getting the dopamine hit from being behind the screen, but enjoying life is much more. Just as Reggie said, look within, meditate, and soon enough, you'll know. You can meditate on a bike ride. You can meditate running. You can meditate sitting. You can meditate what other ways, Reg?
Just it be your way of life, which is to be always in observation of and mindful of and in communion with and all those types of things throughout the day. That's meditation.
Got it, got it.
Always
And
be in a prayerful state and a loving state and kindness state and all that. That's meditation when you actually
so
always, kind of in line with nature.
so basically meditation is being aware and grateful for what surrounds you, what is with you, what supports you, what you support. Everything helps everything else.
Well said.
And and I'm not a meditation guru, and if anything, Reggie has much more advanced knowledge on this than I do. But continue to search. Don't give up. Even when you're feeling like giving up, find a one reason to keep going. And that's how you get the good life. To live the good life is have one friend who you call and just find out what's going on. And it may not be perfect, but AI agents can assist you with figuring out better ways to communicate in life, better ways to get out there. So if you don't know what to do, just ask artificial intelligence. What should you do in order to enjoy life?
Well, and even as you say that, I mean, all of these things are at your disposal, but the biggest, most important thing or entity or what have you in all of that is you. So if you ask these questions and you get answers, don't disregard the answers. That's the key, right? So if you want to use an AI bot or agent and it gives you some type of return or, like you do a chat GPT search or whatever, and it says, these are the 10 things to do for happiness, and you just poo-poo all of them like, oh, I ain't doing that. Then what do you expect, right? Because that's the thing. Many of us, as I realize, is unfortunate we don't want to do the work. We want everything to be done by someone or something else. And the thing is if you want something to happen for you, it requires for you to be in the middle of it. So, and participating in your own happiness and health and wellness. Like, you can't keep eating poorly and expect to be healthy, and say, oh, somebody else's fault. They fed you these meals. Because at some point, you got to take responsibility for your own actions in your own life. And then you can be the agent of your own life and direct it and architect it exactly as you will.
So in order to end this summary of artificial intelligence and agents, what would your final words be?
Final words would be going back to probably what I stated earlier, is just basically being aware and also just really taking advantage of who you are and what you are and the fact that you have every say in where your life goes and what happens to you. And as much as these things come, there's always been some disruptor or something, technology, what have you, throughout all the different ages. And people have survived that, right? And they found a way. So just the same, we can find a way. But if this is going to be that big of a transformative thing that comes about with how AI has actually been brought into the mix and then going to take over a lot of jobs and such, we, as again, statement I just made even a minute or two ago, do the work. You cannot be so lazy as to not wake up every day and do certain levels of work on yourself and make sure that you assure yourself of the fact to keep yourself ahead of things that could potentially cause us a level of concern or, like I said, disrupt your life. So I would plead with people, put some time into you, the important things, reading, exercising, stretching, whatever, learning technologies, something that keeps you relevant in this game, and you should be fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Reg. I just want to add on that what Reg said, and it's true what you're saying. Keep creating. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not worth it. It is worth it. It's worth it to at least one person, that's you, and someone else in the world that picks it up is more than enough, if you understand what I mean. Just be grateful that you're able to create something, to hand it to someone else, and they look at it. Because bigger things come by appreciating the smaller things first. So, if you have $1 and you're grateful for it, eventually you'll get 2, and then you'll get 10, and then you'll get 100, and so on. So, AI agents are here to help. Reggie and I gave you some examples how it can help. And just go out there, focus on one, and enjoy life. This is the Mastermind Book Club, thanking you for another session. And until next week, where we'll review another empowering book. Take care. This is Reggie Hilliard and CEO David Diaz signing off.